they cower. But when the angel's gone, they tend to do things that cause themselves to get into more trouble. It's another reason why in their cultures, in their scripts, in their books, that they're not supposed to persecute me. Remember that they're changing my voice. So let's go ahead and go to the 6th trench or subcircle of the 8th circle of hell. Remember, there's only 9 circles. And it's friars who are hypocrites, okay, and they're stepping on Caiaphas, who is crucified to the floor. And they have on heavy robes, right, these weighted robes, so they have to walk around with these weighted robes. Now, the idea is it causes them a great amount of stress and pain and aches, okay, and when they step on Caiaphas, okay, that, he's causing them suffering. And Caiaphas is a character in the Bible who was a priest with a rank, right, the high priest, right, what have you, and he had it in for Christ and wanted him crucified and so on and so forth. He was saying things like, it's better for one man, him saying, not me, to die than for the whole nation to suffer, when God's plan is the opposite. Going back to those mystics, they're trying to reinforce that kind of temple of Baal and Asherah and Astarte and these different deities that were worshipped in the Bible behind the scenes. They're not, Astarte is not mentioned, but it's basically the same thing, right? Asherah as Hera, right? And Baal, Jupiter, Baal, Zeus is Roman form is Jupiter, and his Middle Eastern form is Baal. And of course, the Bible is Bible, right? It's a bunch of people who are from the Roman culture who are presenting this story in their churches. In fact, it's such Roman culture that the biggest faction of Christianity is called the Roman Catholic Church, right? The Catholic Church, which is the Roman Catholic Church. And I'm told that there's other factions, but that's our association, is it's Roman Catholic. That's what it is. So if there's another faction that's not called Roman Catholic, okay, it is still Roman styled. Okay, and Protestants simply are from the same tree, and they had some relatively minor disagreements when you consider where they're wrong, and they branched off from that Roman tree of which was ruled by Zeus. The main deity in Roman culture was Jupiter, right? Whose Greek equivalent is Zeus, and Jupiter and Juno, and you get Juju, West African witchcraft, which is the witchcraft that found its way, according to the Bible as well, to the Middle East, and then through the cults of Zeus and Hera and all these other cults that migrated from the Middle East to Rome. They're West African witchcraft, right? Ultimately their cultures come from Africa to begin with, no matter how you slice it, because people come from Africa. Okay. So, and of course, not like I'm proud of it or something. I don't like satanic cults. I don't like Greco-Roman mythology. No offense to anybody. I don't like Egyptian mythology where it's evil. Okay, I like good. I like God. I like justice. I don't like paganism as such. I don't like falsehood. Okay. So we get to the 7th trench or circle, thievery. Okay. So this one is the most confusing one of all. And when I heard it in 2 different videos on YouTube, right? I get my information, okay, for this from the videos, and I read the book a little bit. I actually have the book in my house. It's one of the few books in my house where I know where it is, right? Because they've done so much to cause mayhem in my house, right? I hardly know where the books I've written are, and they're small, they're short books. Okay. So when we look at this thing, right, I got it from this guy. There's one channel called Windy Goon, okay, and the guy is actually pretty analytical. He does a pretty good job of presenting it. And there's another gentleman, he's gay or something, the other guy, if I remember correctly, and he did a very good job of presenting it. Both of them did a good job. One of them, the Windy Goon one, was longer. And they put in a way that I actually like hearing them say it, or rather reading the annotations, because I can't listen to the videos, more than reading the book itself, because it's so confusing. It is poetry, but it's deliberately and ridiculously confusing poetry to a large degree. Maybe some moments of it you're like, oh, I can understand that. And some moments you're like, what the heck are you talking about? Okay, you kind of get the words point to certain ideas, and it's pretty extreme. I'm capable of really taking my time to figure out what they're saying, but it's very annoying to do so for me particularly. I mean, some of you might not mind it. I don't like the book itself for that reason. I do like what they're getting at to some degree. Okay, so there's basically these lizard and snake hybrid creatures. They turn to ash. Okay. Oh, excuse me. There's these lizard and snake hybrid creatures, and they sting the people on that level, right? Which are the thieves. And they turn to ash and then reform. Okay? And these sort of hybrid lizards and snakes, okay, sting a person who was bound by snakes, who of course turns to ash and reforms. Now, when we look at the lizards themselves, right, they're also prisoners of that level, right? The demons, right? Anyone who goes to hell and has to live in hell and serve in hell is being punished, right? And for eternity. Okay. Now, Dante might disagree, but this is the reality of the situation, is for eternity. And of course, this is just a book that he wrote. This is not what's happening there. Okay. So he comes across a person who stole from God, and as soon as he says that he's not a big fan of God, him saying, not me, he gets snakes wrap around him. And, that shows you how the snakes get on the people. Okay. And the snake is said to turn into, let me just leave it there. Okay, there's something to do with worms and snakes and smoke. I'll go ahead and skip over this part. It's not that important anyway. It kind of annoys me a little bit because I wrote it down a bit in my notes, but I can't really read it, and that's because of the fuming and sabotage. So I'm just going to go ahead and skip over. It's not that important. It's basically a metaphor for thieves who are chasing their own tails, so to speak, right? They're turning into, some of these guys turn into the snakes and lizards, hybrid kind of things, and they eat the other guys, and there's a worm and that turns into the snake eventually, and things like this, right? Okay, so point number, circle number 8, leaders who are misleading. There's souls on fire everywhere. Okay, let's go ahead and go to circle number 9, the sowers of discord. Okay. Their body parts are ripped up and they're thrown into a sea of body parts. They still feel their bodies and they're suffering to the extreme. The 10th circle, the liars and the falsifiers of the word. It is dark, and when Virgil and Dante go in there, they first hear the shrieks, and people are covered in giant scabs, and they look like fish scales, and they're rabid and they're frothing at the mouth and they're biting each other, right? And they're just in a miserable, dark, scab-filled state. Some of these people were counterfeiters as well, right? Falsifiers in general. There's fake money, and this one guy is covered in fake money. He's bloated. He's hideously bloated, and they're shoving it toward each other and so on and so forth. So as they go down toward the final circle, the 9th circle of hell, there's giants stuck in the ground, and the top half is sticking out of the ground. And in the darkness, one giant named Nimrod is blowing a huge trumpet. Okay, now there's two ways to look at this. Dante either was a complete monster who knew Nimrod was actually a good character. The other way to look at it is he didn't know, and he confused it. This is a common mistake. The mistake is like saying that Jesus, was Esau or something, right? Because to be the offspring of Jacob, who changed his name to Israel after he wrestled with God, representing an eternal spiritual struggle, is one thing. Okay, being some of the Jews, or the vast majority of Jews who did the wrong thing after he's gone, is another thing. And so it is with Nimrod. It was the people of Nimrod, the people in the area of Nimrod, in Babylon, the people in the area of Nimrod in Babylon that built the tower. It wasn't Nimrod himself. Nimrod was a mighty warrior before the Lord, and in order for the Bible, for someone to interpret the Bible to make that argument that it was Nimrod himself, they would have to see it saying Nimrod himself did it. Okay, just like if you're going to make the argument that Israel died an evil person, you'd have to see that written down in the Bible. You can't just assume that. So a racist person that doesn't want to give the black man his credit, say, how do we solve this problem that Nimrod is greater than basically every character but Christ? Okay, we say that he is the one who built the frickin' tower. So they have Nimrod being punished, right? He's blowing a huge trumpet, and when he tries to speak, it's indiscernible, and they mistakenly cite the Tower of Babel, right? Babel and Babylon, and babbling on. So some of you might say, well, that's why they're making it harder for you to speak. No, they're racist. Okay, the truth comes to the light. They don't do things behind the scenes. God never says, do things behind the scenes and pretend you're superior. No. So we know by default that they're merged with the state. They're doing it behind the scenes. They're racist scum, and they won't debate me. So obviously I wasn't mocking God. I'm mocking these immature people. So as we get toward the final circle, there's a bunch of giants who are kind of stuck into the ground, and they're huge, right? And one of them named Anetheus, okay, is convinced to take them down to the bottom level, and Dante tells him that he's gonna make him famous by writing about him, and that's how he convinced him.